Mark Gunn Media.
Hit it!
Welcome to Gunshots Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. The views expressed are those of the speaker and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of any advertiser or business entity associated with this broadcast. Here is your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome once again to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. My name is Mark Gunn. With this podcast, we take a look at ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And the man I've got in the studio today is one of the most extraordinary human beings that I've ever met. In fact, this was the guy that inspired me to pick up my camera after a few years off. And if you are here in Louisville, you know the name. For my money, one of the best photographers and videographers, filmmakers ever. As a matter of fact, he had a film that hit cable not very long ago, and I think you can still find it. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Antonio Pantoja.
Oh,
brother, how are you?
Very kind of you, man. What a kind introduction. I felt like a fighter running down to the ring, or like a wrestler running to the Royal Rumble.
Oh, we can put hype music behind it now. That's not a problem. So how are you, man?
Oh, better than I deserve. I'm on my way back up, health wise and stuff like that.
Yeah, we definitely got to talk about that because again, your story, and I've told you this time and time again, your story is absolutely amazing. You have to have lived it in order to believe it. Again, you are known for your visual artistry, both in the world of photography and in filmmaking. The film I alluded to, and we'll talk more about it as the episode goes, is in the horror genre called One Must Fall.
Yeah.
And I remember when you made that you were entering a short film festival competition, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was I started doing that one because I was going to get on a reality show, which is Robert Rodriguez, which is like one of my filmmaking idols, was going to have a show where he's following somebody for the first time, making their first film, and I ended up making it to the finals of that show, which was pretty cool. Like the last few people it's like a reality show.
Right,
they give you have to make the film for $7,000. So I sent them the script and they loved it. And we did a bunch of interviews and I made it on the show. But the dates that we were shooting on, I'd already signed contracts for to shoot other things. I had to be back in Louisville. So they said, I have to have you here for 14 days consecutive. Right. So it would have worked out if I was able to come back home and then go back out to Texas to shoot it. But it didn't work out. So I went ahead and made the movie anyway.
Wow. And you've won a gang of awards for that film.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, it was very low budget, but we competed with big budget films. And I think total it was like 126 awards on the festival circuit all around the world, which is pretty sweet. I didn't expect anybody to see the thing, So,
right.
And I think that makes you a little bit more brave, like whenever you're writing and you're like, well, nobody's really going to see this. I'm going to do my best and probably nobody will see it. So I can make some mistakes. It's cool. Mm-hmm. People will see it.
And it ended up on, was it Tubi that it ended up on?
Yeah, we were one of the first 30 movies on Tubi, and now there's like 30,000 movies on Tubi.
Wow.
So, and because the distribution company that I went with, Gravitas Ventures, they wanted to rename the movie to One Must Fall, O-N-E, One Must Fall, to the number one,
right?
Which was a very smart marketing thing to do. But yeah, it was everywhere. It was like Time Warner and Warner Brothers and Amazon and everywhere except for HBO and Netflix, pretty much.
Your area of specialty, genre-wise, is the horror genre. What drew you to that?
Yeah, I do. I love horror. When I was really young, my dad was a laborer, so he was an immigrant from Peru. So, and that's usually what like immigrants here do is they just kind of go into labor, like, the labor field or whatever. So he would be gone, before I got up for school, and then he wouldn't come home until long after, like I went to bed most of the times. But the times that he did come home and the times that I was able to see him, and he'd always be like, everybody get on the couch and we're going to watch a scary movie. So I have this like crazy sense of like family unity from horror, which is weird. But I mentioned that, when I go to a lot of these film festivals and stuff like that, and these people gather to watch film and stuff, and they kind of all have a very similar story to that. It's really weird.
Let's turn the clock back a little bit so that we can get to know Antonio Pantoja, the regular Joe Schmo, the brother I like hanging out with whenever we get the chance because you're so freaking busy.
Oh, man.
Your origin story. Where were you born? How did you get here? What was your childhood like? all of that.
Yeah, I always lived in Louisville. Lived here my whole life. My mother was an addict, but it wasn't until like I was like 9 or 10 years old. Maybe she got really addicted to Xanax. This is the first time I've ever told this story really in this detail, but because kind of people know like my story for the most part, but they don't know this. But she had a miscarriage when I was about 8 or 9, and then she got in a car accident, and then she got addicted to Xanax, and then that's just when like our lives kind of took a turn. Everything was really great until then, and she was really, really bad. She was a zombie all day, drooling on herself, just standing up, falling asleep kind of thing, all the way to the ground, back hunch, just what you see on, sometimes you go, down Broadway where that Taco Bell is.
Right.
And I've lived in Louisville my whole life. And then kind of my dad started kind of taking the reins on things and taking off work more. And they separated and stuff like that. They ended up getting back together. So kind of that was my story. And then I've lost both parents. My mother ended up losing her battle with addiction, and fentanyl is huge here. A lot of times people think they're buying Xanax off the street, but really it's fentanyl.
It's fentanyl.
Yeah. And it just takes like barely anything to kill you. And it has the same effects, I think, of Xanax.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just a little bit, you're dead. So people are pressing these up and they're selling them on the street or whatever. And she was buying them off of the street. So yeah, my dad had been gone like, 15 years. And then she didn't have them around to kind of keep her honest as possible, because she kind of was always an addict, but she came from even worse background. My story sounds, hers is way worse. So she passed away like 3-ish years ago. Yeah. She died, lethal dose of fentanyl. She thought she was buying Xanax, went through her text messages, the whole thing. So figured that out. Sucks, but I think like I am a addict too. I've never done any drugs before. I don't drink or anything like that. I don't smoke, but I think I get addicted to like goals and stuff like that. Right. If I get into the gym or something, I get really infatuated with it, or movies, and I just go down this rabbit hole and I can't stop. And I think that's part of like addiction too.
And I think when we met, there was a core group that not only were in the gym culture, but there was a huge MMA background.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
They were all working at where we were working too. That's so funny.
And with losing both parents, trying to navigate the world as a young man, and then you have your own health issues that you alluded to a little bit ago.
Yeah, it's so like the last 3 years have felt like just this really bad nightmare, I guess. There's been some really good dream moments in it and stuff like that too. Probably been about 2 years ago, actually, maybe 3. I had a heart attack. It was the Widowmaker. So I had like a 7% chance of survival. Like I said, I don't drink, don't smoke, never done any drugs in my life. I'm infatuated with the gym. I eat lean, always clean, in a deficit sometimes. But so I do that. And I was in the gym when I had the heart attack. At the time, I was in the best shape of my life. But I think with that, I think that we underestimate, how powerful stress is.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where it all came from. So I was going through this divorce, and it was really, really rough, very stressful. And my mother had just died. And then my grandmother died, she's from Peru. She didn't even speak any English. I don't speak Spanish. I don't talk to her often, but I see her often. And basically she had passed away. It was on Mother's Day, I want to say. Man. And so the next day after that, I had the heart attack, which is pretty crazy. I was in the gym. I thought it was just like a tight pressure in my chest. And then I started Googling like all the symptoms of a heart attack. My teeth hurt. And it was weird, man. So then I just drove myself to the hospital, and it was the Widowmaker. And I was lucky that I got there. Well, they did the EKG on me too. And it looks fine. Like your heart rate looks fine. Everything looks fine. Yeah. And I'm in gym clothes, so they're like, there's no way that you're having a heart attack. Calm down. And I'm like, no, I know. No. And so they were like, you can go home. And then my brother's wife was like, you need to tell them to do a troponin test. And the reason I'm going into deep detail on this is because sometimes like minorities like us, like especially Black and Hispanic, we have a lot of males with heart conditions. Right. And I think 100% of Hispanics have high cholesterol, males. And I didn't know that, And then the Widowmaker, they'll send you home. They'll just send you home if the EKG looks fine. But if they do a troponin test, which is a blood test, then they can determine how much blood is getting to your heart. So then they were like, oh, well, you need to go immediately into surgery.
Wow. So you go into surgery, and I remember how long your recovery was. Ladies and gentlemen, this dude is absolutely, if you check his social media out, because I know you were documenting your journey back in the gym, one would think, okay, the kind of shape this guy is in, there's no way that this can happen. But then again, you already had some pre-existing underlying health issues to begin with. And
high cholesterol. And I think that's that's very prominent, like with a lot of minorities, and has to do with bone density and stuff like that. And the reason that we're negative buoyant, we sink instead of float.
Right.
It's just weird things, A lot of that, man, plays a factor into it, and it's hereditary for us, and that we're going to have high cholesterol or some sort of coronary artery disease, and which sucks, man. So yeah, man, I think it's really good for people to, just check in and do your blood work and make sure you're okay. And stress is crazy because people manage it so differently, and sometimes we're not very kind to ourselves with our internal dialogue, and things that might not bother somebody totally is going to bother us, and you just got to be careful and let things roll off you a little bit more.
And then with the type of work that you do, it's high pressure. It's go, 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 go. So that's another level of stress that you're already dealing with.
Yeah. Sometimes, I'll be on a shoot and there's 100 people. You can't call in. There's 100 people depending on you to be there and to tell them what to do and to make sure that you're on time and to get things done and stuff like that. And without you, it's just not going to, you have to be rescheduled. They're going to lose whatever company's hired. You're just going to lose a ton of money. Sometimes it's more than 100 people that are waiting on you for that day. So you got to, it is a lot of pressure. But what's funny is I think that level of pressure doesn't really get to me. It excites me. But like the personal stuff and the relationships and stuff like that, that really will derail and kill me, man. I got to really manage that.
I'll tell you what. So once again, we are hanging out with Antonio Pantoja. We're going to talk about how you ended up picking up the camera in just a little bit more with Gunshots Straight from the Hip right after this.
If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. While you're listening to this episode, this is where you would hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your business can be exposed to thousands of listeners at any given time. Your commercial is professionally produced and, depending on your message, can have a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshots Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program, unlike anything else in this particular space. Episodes are available on many podcast platforms, which makes the potential for new customers that much greater. Most of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you want more information on how to sponsor this program, call Mark Gunn Media at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or visit our website at markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
Welcome back to Gunshots Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. To download this and past episodes, go to markgunmedia.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Once again, your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Gunshots Straight from the Hip, the podcast that takes a look at the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. In the studio, my brother from another mother, the inspiration for me picking up the camera once again, photographer, filmmaker, Antonio Pantoja. We talked about before you picked up the camera. What was the first time you actually picked up a camera, and do you remember what led you to picking it up?
Oh, yeah. I had a 2-second video of my dad right before he died. It was about a week. I was selling it I'd never picked up a camera in my life, but I never thought it was possible for me, but I always wanted to. But I was like selling furniture. I was in the military at the time, and I was selling furniture at this place called Ashley Furniture, and I won the camera because I was doing really well there. My daughter had just been born, so I got in the military, and selling furniture and doing pretty well at it, making pretty good money. And they kept giving me things that I was winning on a weekly basis, and one of them was like a video camera. We had 2 seconds of video of my dad just before he passed. And then my daughter, when she got a little older, she was like, "Will you tell me stories about your dad and how he came here from Peru and how he didn't speak English when he got here and stuff?" And I always thought, baby, I think I've told you all the stories. And then I thought, how amazing would it be if I filmed other people who were terminal or old, and maybe they have cancer, their grandchildren aren't born yet, and we could film them and they could tell their stories, and their grandkids could watch it on a DVD where they go to the chapter about this is your grandpa when he came here from another country, or how hard he used to work, or how he was treated when he first got here. I don't know, all those things would be really interesting, and I didn't have that for my dad, but I thought that was really cool to be able to give to somebody else. So I was on the hunt to do that, and then I started shooting weddings and short films and all these emotional things, and it brought back all those same emotions for me, and I didn't realize how impactful that doing video or photos is, but you live on forever. Like, I just realized when my dad passed away and I watched that video, I still watch it a million times, but you become immortal. Your story lives on forever, and it's crazy. And I thought how impactful that was. So I just continue to do it, try to step up my game all the time.
Which, in the world of photography and videography, stepping up that game is always, it's so subjective, even though there are absolute basics that you have to get right in order to get better.
Yeah.
And I remember we were having a conversation, and I'm surprised that I remembered this. And you were talking about a shoot that you were on or you were a part of, and somebody else was the primary. And I remember, I don't know how we got into the discussion, but you were looking at these photos, and there were just some basic things that were just so bad that you kept pointing them out. And to the novice, because people shoot the way that they shoot without any rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
But to the novice, we wouldn't have had a clue. But in that conversation, those were some of the very things that I started looking for, that I became critical of.
Wow.
And for me, picking the camera back up, I was like, okay, I've got to get these things right before I try to develop a style. And I think that is something that is still an ongoing process for me, because I think, if anything, and I rely on you and people that have been doing this a lot longer, people that are doing it professionally, my biggest focus has always been on composition. And so I think that's pretty much where my bread and butter is. How am I composing this shot? How am I capturing the moment? That type of thing. But you have a style that you've developed, and I've seen it evolve even since the time that you and I have known each other.
Oh, wow. Thank you, man.
That it's hard to describe, but you kind of know it when you see it. It's like I can see any photo and I know, okay, that's a Pantoja.
Oh, wow, man. Thank you.
And I think that's something that every photographer or every filmmaker wants to get. There's a certain style. Did that style come from your love of horror films, or maybe a nightmare or a daymare?
That's funny that you say that. I have that column in The Voice, and it's called A Beautiful Nightmare.
The Voice is a local newspaper magazine here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mark, he used to write for The Voice, and he's been in a lot of times. And I want to get him in again as a model for me this time.
Oh,
so,
we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Yeah.
Developing that style and trying to find your name and express your vision in such a way is difficult, because, you don't want to appear to look like everybody else and just be authentic, And I think that whenever I start these photos and stuff like that, I usually start with like a bit of a story of some kind, or something that I'm trying to express, or I want to show somebody in a way that I see them and I love them, and I can't wait to show people that version of them. With just a photo is really difficult. Video's much easier. You can actually tell a story, but a photo's, a lot of it's left to interpretation. And when people get the message, that's really impactful. That's huge, and that's beautiful when they can do that. But like, for example, I shot Dorian. He's like my brother. I shot him a couple months ago. Go ahead.
Dorian Washington is one of the big success stories in the field of music. He's behind a lot of names that you probably have the music of, but he is so behind the scenes that it's incredible. You talk about somebody that makes things happen. The photo shoot that you did with him on the Throne recently.
Yes,
yeah.
He's a legend. Yeah. And I think I told you a bit about that, but just for the listeners, I wanted to show, so he came from literally nothing. When he was a baby, his mother was holding him in her arms, and his grandfather shot his mother and killed her. And then his grandfather got away with murder and raised Dorian himself.
Wow.
So, and I'll repeat it because it's so crazy.
Right.
So Dorian was raised by his mother's murderer, which is insane. So despite that, he came up through music and he chased it down, and he's got these really obscure methods that are crazy, that seem very obvious and common sense, but he's got these ways to corner this market that you've never seen or heard of before, and it's amazing. And I've known him a long time, and the way that he treats people, he's the most beautiful person to people, and he's never changed, never faltered. So that being said, I wanted to make a throne, because people call him King Dorian. Yep. Rightfully so. I wanted to make a throne, and we would melt down albums like the Game of Thrones series, where they melted down the swords, that made all the fallen kings, almost as if like it was a metaphor for Dorian exploring music and going through music, and he's got this throne made of melted records. But I ended up just doing just the throne, and it came out beautiful. And I put the throne like in, it was like an alley, but it's lit like with neons and stuff, and it came out really, really beautiful. But I just wanted people to understand a bit more of his story and be able to, connect those dots on it. We did some more photos from that shoot that I think are amazing, and we've got another one coming, but I think it'll show him in a really beautiful light. But I just want people to see him the way that I see him and love him,
All right, once again, we're talking with Antonio Pantoja, photographer and filmmaker. Do you remember the very first shoot that you actually got paid for?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I think so. I remember I did a wedding a long time ago. It's probably 16 or 17 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember I begged them to let me, because I shot a bunch of music videos, but all for free,
Right.
And this might be the first one that I got paid for. And I probably charged them next to nothing. But I wanted to, shoot the wedding. And it was very emotional, man. And it really got a hold of me. And I remember on that wedding, the groom's mother also used to be a videographer a long time ago, and I shot video for it. And it was like a camera with a big old light on it and a big old battery that she had to carry around behind her like an umbilical cord. And she didn't trust me at all to shoot this thing. And, and she's like, I don't trust you. I'm shooting it myself. And it was like the mother of the groom. But yeah, hopefully she got some good stuff, because I know I slaughtered it. I killed it. It was really good. I got some good stuff. But yeah, it was cool.
And weddings, man, they are fun to shoot, and they can be a nightmare to shoot.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the first ones I shot was in Cancun.
Wow.
And
man.
I wasn't even the photographer. I just happened to walk on the beach, and there was a wedding. And so you never go anywhere without your camera. Mm-hmm. And I started taking shots, making sure I was out of the actual photographer's way. I ended up putting these shots together. I got to know the bride and groom, and I actually gave them the shots as a wedding gift.
That's awesome, man.
And, because you go into this mode, and again, for me, composition is everything. So I'm thinking, okay, how can I get these shots, stay out of the way, and make them nice, that type of thing. And that's just on a lark.
Yeah.
But when and I don't know if this is you, but when you're on a shoot and you are so hyper-focused on what it is that you're shooting, I've developed a vision to where I see things as photographs. Like right now, we're in the radio station studio, and right behind Antonio is our production room. And hanging on the wall in the production room is a huge banner with our call letters, with the WLOU call letters and slogan on it. And I'm looking at Antonio right now, and I'm seeing a portrait with Antonio off to the right and that background image slightly blurred. So I see things as photographs now.
That's incredible. It's funny that you say that, because I do too sometimes, but I always think of all the things that I can change.
Right.
So I'm always like, I'm going to shoot this, but I'm going to make it like, this is going to be this crazy bathroom with all of these ivy trees and maybe like a grass wall or something like that. And people are like, hey, we're just in studio, man. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, no, but I'm going to make all these things. One time, it was a male model. I don't think he was a model before this, but I thought he was amazing. And he looks just like James Dean. So I said, man, can I shoot you? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, for sure, man. Whatever. Let's shoot. So we set a date and we shot whatever. And I got my buddy's a makeup artist. So I was like, man, let's shoot this thing. It's going to be James Dean. He's going to be coming from the grave.
Wow.
And I'll show you the picture. So he comes to the shoot. It's freezing cold. And I've been digging this hole for about, I don't know, a few hours. It's freezing, like it's chipping away. It's all frozen.
Right.
And he gets down in this hole in a t-shirt and stuff. He's like, if I hadn't seen your work, man, I would think you're a lunatic. Like, this is foolish. And then so later I shot the same dude. Like, it was a bunch of wild stuff, and in my living room, and just because I'll create everything. It was just very ridiculous.
Where do these ideas come from?
I don't know, man. I'm sure you do it too. Like, you kind of see something and you're like, that'd be crazy if it was this way. Wouldn't it be insane if it did this instead of that? And wouldn't it be crazy if we were in this room and half of the ceiling is flying out of it and then clouds are pouring into it and all this lightning and thunder is coming down? And you might be like, I'm going to make that happen.
Wow. Antonio Pantoja is our guest with Gunshot Straight from the Hip. So we're going to go from film to film. More coming up. Gunshot Straight from the Hip.
As a business owner, one of your biggest concerns is how to market your products and services. What message do I want to send? Who am I sending it to? How do I reach the largest number of people possible? And how do I make it cost effective? The answer to all of these questions is Mark Gunn Media. Mark Gunn is a radio and multimedia specialist with almost 50 years in the industry. He's an award-winning voiceover artist, audio producer, and radio personality who's used his expertise to help thousands of advertisers throughout his career. Just ask anyone that's worked with him, and they'll tell you that Mark Gunn Media gets results. If you're looking for an effective marketing strategy or any multimedia voiceover work, call Mark Gunn Media at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or contact us at markgunmedia.com.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. To download this and past episodes, go to markgunmedia.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Once again, your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip. Remember, you can download this and previous episodes by going to my website, markgunmedia.com, and my photography portfolio is also there, so you can check some of that out. Speaking of photography, we are talking with Antonio Pantoja, multiple-time award-winning filmmaker and photographer. And as a child, you picked up a camera, you picked up the video recorder, that type of thing, and you get to start making film. One Must Fall. Was that your first feature?
Yeah, that was my first feature. That one's a full length, so it's like an hour and a half-ish long. But yeah, my first film.
Talk about the evolution of One Must Fall. Where did the story come from, and what was the impetus for you making it?
You know, in a nutshell, I really wanted to make like a love letter to an 80s film, pretty much. I love slashers and stuff like that. But I noticed that a lot of the times you're kind of rooting for the villain, and you're not really rooting for, you know, the people. They're just like fodder for the killer. So I wanted to make one that's a little more impactful with characters that you might like, you know, and then you'd be sad if they died. So a little bit more emotional investment in there. And so I went to Quill's Coffee, and I had a week to write it because my wife at the time, she's now my ex-wife, she was going to take the kids to Florida.
Yeah.
And I would stay home, and I have 1 week to write this thing.
Wow.
So it was, you know, and my intention was to do it for this television show or whatever. So basically I was like, well, I know I want to make an 80s movie, but like, what is some attire? What's something that people have worn that's universal for all, you know, eras, like from the 80s to today, where they still wear, and they can still wear it, and it's timeless. Mm-hmm. And I thought, hazmat suits.
Yeah.
That's pretty timeless. Yep. Now, what do people in hazmat suits do? I was like, well, there's painters, and I used to paint. You know, I used to be a laborer. I can't do a film about painters. That would kind of suck. What about crime scene cleanup crews?
Right,
They've always kind of worn that. And I'm like, man, wouldn't it be crazy? And that's how everything starts. You know, wouldn't it be crazy? Wouldn't it be crazy if there was a killer who killed a bunch of people? He's not been apprehended. He's never been caught. And then the crime scene cleanup crew has to come and clean up the mess. Mm-hmm. And then so I searched it in Google. I'm like, do crime scene cleanup people have to still go and clean up the mess, these body parts and stuff, if the killer is never arrested? And they do. And I'm like, wow, man, that's crazy. So I looked at a couple like locations that I thought we could do this at. And the reason I wanted to do an 80s film, by the way, is because if the camp counselors had a cell phone in Friday the 13th.
Right. Wouldn't have been much of a movie.
Yeah, I think Jason would have never caught him. It's like, hey, you know, Dave, he's right behind you. Get out of there. You know, it would never work. So I really wanted to get out of that. And, you know, I didn't want it to be like a cheesy situation where it's like, well, our phones don't work in this building. You know, I couldn't do that. I thought that was just, I'd rather go through a lot of trouble to make it feel more realistic than that. So it's set in the 80s because of that reason. Yeah, man. And I think it was pretty good. I thought it was okay. I cringe at a lot of it now, but I wrote it and I directed it and I shot most of it and I edited it. And then a buddy of mine, he edited it better than me. And I had so much help and so many friends who stepped up and in that industry who were so kind. And my idol, Lloyd Kaufman, is in it, which was crazy. I used to listen to him when I was a kid on The Toxic Crusader and The Toxic Avenger. He's the director of that. He shot the movie Rocky, and he was the assistant director for Rocky. He's been in a million films, but talking to him, you know, because he's like my mentor, and he's 78 years old, you know, 76. And I said, Lloyd, I am scared to do this movie. You know, he's like, why are you so scared, man? It's just your first film. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's why I'm scared. It's my first film. And he's like, but you're acting like it's this big dragon you got to slay, man. Like he's like, you're going to do another film and another film after that. This is not your last film. It's your first. Mm-hmm. So, man, that really got me going. And he said, I tell you what, man, if you do that film, I'll be in it for you.
Wow.
Super cool of him, man. And so he did. He flew out, kept his word. He was in it. I wrote him a little part, and he was awesome, man. And I put a bunch of people I loved in it. And I always try to do that with anything that I'm a part of, is put like just something from you, you know, or just anybody who I love. I want them to be some part of that.
And again, the movie holds up still, even though it's dated. It's not dated. You could watch it, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't look like an 80s
right.
film.
It doesn't look. Yeah, it doesn't look like an 80s film. It's that Pantoja look.
Oh,
to
thank
it.
you, man.
So that's something that again, when you get a chance, look for it. One Must Fall. I think you can still find it on Tubi or one of the other streaming services.
Yeah, it's everywhere still. But man, I think that next time I do one, I'd like to. So this one, you know, I didn't really take a lot of chances and stuff, but I'd like to do something where it's more ethereal, like my photography is, and incorporate those kind of scenes into it. But I shot the film in 11 days, so I had no time and no money. So I just got approved for my next film's budget, and it's 8 times bigger than One Must Fall. And just from one investor so far. So people have been asking me to do another, and I want to do another one. But yeah, a friend of mine, really close friend, he's really encouraged me, and he's like, you know, you do this film, and it's going to be 8 times bigger budget than One Must Fall. So he'll help me a lot.
Well, you know, just if you got a part for it, brother.
Well, I got to put you in, man.
It's like, because I'm always good for the professorial role or the authority figure and that type of thing. So
I could see that for sure.
Yeah, that's typically where my wheelhouse is, according to people that have cast me and stuff before. So
well, Mark is a bona fide model too. So like a lot of people, if they haven't heard your voice, you know, they probably can't. They don't understand, man. The dude, he's a legit model.
Well, I may as well tell the story now. So late last year, I was approached by comedian Kim Vaughn, who is the founder of a group called the Mod Squad, MOD, Men of Distinction. And it's a group of senior models, average age is like 45. It's advocacy through men's fashion. What we want to show is that it's cool to dress well. That's on the very surface. We also focus on, you know, men's issues like mental health, physical health, spiritual health, emotional health, everything from dressing well, lifestyle hacks, bourbon and cigars, anything having to do with manhood, we try to approach. And it's an approach that's a younger age on up, because these are things that we've been able to learn throughout the course of our lives. And we want to pass it down to younger generations, because we want to make dressing well cool again. And so we try to set the example whenever we make public appearances, even just in daily life, we try to set that example. So that's where the whole modeling thing comes from. You can check us out on social media. And you and I were talking about the potential of doing a Pantoja shoot.
Yeah, man.
That we got to finalize those details. But
I got some ideas.
See, there you go. It always starts with I got some ideas. I want to talk about passing this down to the next generation when we come back, because last year you surprised the heck out of me with a film that you collaborated on with your daughter Echo.
Oh yeah.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. More with Antonio Pantoja, Gunshot Straight from the Hip, right after this.
If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. While you're listening to this episode, this is where you would hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshot Straight from the Hip, your business can be exposed to thousands of listeners at any given time. Your commercial is professionally produced and, depending on your message, can have a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshot Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program, unlike anything else in this particular space. Episodes are available on many podcast platforms, which makes the potential for new customers that much greater. Most of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you want more information on how to sponsor this program, call Mark Gunn Media at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or visit our website at markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com.
Mark Gunn Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. To download this and past episodes, go to markgunmedia.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Once again, your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip. My name is Mark Gunn. Once again, you can download this and past episodes by going to my website, markgunmedia.com. You can also check out the work of Antonio Pantoja on antoniopantoja.com.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Definitely check that site out, man, because I'm telling you, if you want to get an idea of what this young man is capable of, and it's mind-blowing. I'll put it. In fact, a friend of mine had a chance to check out your site, and she was absolutely blown away.
Oh, man, thank you. I haven't updated that thing in like 10 years, too. I think it's my demo reel from 2012 on there, 2012.
But everything still holds up. That's the incredible thing about it. So, again, we're talking about your career as a photographer and a filmmaker, and you have basically taken this to the next generation. You did a film with your daughter, Echo, that she was the principal in. Talk about that movie.
Yeah, she's done 2 now, which is crazy to me. The first one that she did was about, we used to walk home. I have an electric car. I used to charge my car like a block from my house, and we used to just walk home and let it charge over there or whatever. There's a charger. And she said, wouldn't it be so scary if we saw something? What would we do, And I said, I don't know. It'd be pretty scary. She's like, what are you thinking? I don't know, like an alien. And then I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Like, what kind of alien? She's like, well, maybe if we moved, then it moved, and it mimicked our movements. And I'm like, that would be scary. And I said, well, what about if we ran away? She said, it would run after us. And I said, that's crazy. So we started doing this film, and I said, Echo, I'm getting all the stuff for the film or whatever, so how do you want it to be dressed? And she said, and this is like a legit alien. If you guys got to see this thing, it's called The Walk. It's really good. It's by Echo Pantoja. But so she's like, it's wearing a hoodie, like a kid's hoodie. And I said, why do you want it to have a kid's hoodie on? And she said, because the last person that it takes the kids. So it took the kid, and it's wearing the kid's hoodie. And I thought that was brilliant.
Wow.
So we did that one. It was really cool. And then she got a girl who's in Stranger Things season 4 to play the lead in that one, which was pretty sweet. She was amazing. Her name's Elizabeth Hewitt. She was awesome. She was so good. Yeah. And she won an award for that at Fright Night Film Festival. She debuted it there. The guy who did the son in Breaking Bad, his film debuted right before Echo's film, there was a bunch of celebrities there. It was crazy. And then Echo was like, okay, I want to enter the 48-hour film project. And I'm like, Echo, let's talk about this because it's a very political, man. And if my name is attached to this, we will not win.
And for those that don't know, the 48-hour film project is a competition where you get a theme and you have 48 hours to complete a short film involving certain elements within that theme. So you get your theme, and then there are certain benchmarks that they're looking for that have to be in the film.
Yes.
Now, just to go back a little bit, how old is Echo when The Walk was done?
She was 8 when she started on it and 9 when we did it.
Okay.
And then 9 when we did the 48-hour film project also.
Yeah, this is the one that is near and dear to my heart because, well, I'm going to let you tell that story.
Okay. So we get our genre, and I think it's sci-fi. I can't remember.
I think it was sci-fi.
I can't remember what it is, or it's like Fish Out of Water or something like that. They have genres, and you don't know what you're going to get. You have no clue what you're going to do, but you assemble a small team, So I got a few people, a few friends to be involved in it. One shot I didn't shoot. I wanted to be completely hands-off. I wanted her to do her thing. So got some friends together to help write and stuff like that. And she wanted to do one where it was like a person was treated really poorly in the beginning of the film, and you didn't really know why. And everybody's treating this person like an outcast, and they're super awful to this person. You don't see their face. And then you realize that this person is a zombie going through their day-to-day life. And in the end of it, I don't want to spoil it, but it's very juvenile. It's very sweet and beautiful. It's shot beautifully. And in the end of it, the zombie, he ends up finally like getting fired from all these jobs, and he works in this haunted house. And he's doing great, and everybody loves him. Right. And then there's a girl there who's also dressed like a zombie, and she's complaining about the makeup and stuff like that. And she's like, yours is really good. And the zombie like falls in love with her. Yep. And it's just a really, really cute situation, man. And it's supposed to be like the beginning of the zombie apocalypse, and she created it. And I think that she's just amazing. And here in Louisville, I don't get any love for like a award kind of situation stuff. So when it comes to competition here, I'm not ever going to get any love. And I've lost the 48-hour film project 6 times.
Wow.
I came in second 5 times. So that's why I showed Echo Little Miss Sunshine the day before.
I remember that. Yeah.
Because I was like, and I probably even told you before it even was going to be shown. Because I said, Echo, this is how you have to deal with loss. And she's like, well, we're going to win. We have the best one for sure. And I'm like, well, you don't know. You know what I'm saying? You just don't know that. And there's some that could be way better, and you just don't know. You can't act like that either.
Right.
Yours was really good. But we didn't even place, dude. We didn't even get top 3.
Right.
And I thought that was absurd. Well, we ended the movie on something that Mark, his tagline for ending every single thing that he's ever done. And we molded into the guy starts the zombie apocalypse. So it's, if you can't change the people around you, then change the people around you.
Right.
It already has a dual meaning, But then you add this other element to it, which means turn them into a zombie. So that's what it did. And this guy, he's a sweet guy and he's a sweetheart and he just wanted to be accepted. And he ends up starting a zombie apocalypse because he made everybody just like him.
And when you invited me to the festival to see it, I had no clue. So I'm watching this and the end credits are rolling and I see that phrase and I turn to look at you and you just have this big grin on your face. I'm like, wow, I'm absolutely blown away. And I choked up.
You know who reminded me of that? It was the night we were going to submit it because you only have 48 hours to finish it. You're delirious by that time, so you haven't slept for 48 hours. And you've been shooting and all that. And Mike Reed, he's the one who was like, man, you really need to put that in there for Mark.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mike,
super good guy.
I mean, all three of you, thank you. That was so touching. And I think when we talked about this last, at some point, you're going to be able to put that film out to the public, right?
Oh, yeah. That's right. I have not ever. Echo was so disappointed, man, in losing. Mm-hmm. I would never bash anybody else's work, but I will say that some people probably didn't make a really honest effort on it, and we really did, man. We shot numerous locations, and it was it's a funny film and stuff, but it was very serious and took a lot of really hard work, and none of us slept. And she's 9, man, and I think maybe it's a good lesson for loss and stuff like that, and I knew that was going to happen, but it was pretty dirty. And I'm not trying to call any judges out or anything like that, but there was I knew that was going to happen based on who the lineup was.
Man,
it's dirty, and it's just dirty, and it was for me, not her.
Right, and you could tell just in the final product that despite all the hard work, she had a lot of fun doing this.
She did. She loved it, and I tried to not make it so much about competition as much as the process, because I think once you start chasing that, then you're chasing the wrong thing, just trying to win and victory and stuff like that, because it's really not about that, man. If you fall in love with the process, then you've already won.
Now, has the filmmaker bug transferred to her? She wanting to do more films?
She does little stop motion animation right now. She's doing that on her own, and it's really cool. She just does it in her room. But after that one, man, it killed her. It really killed her, man. I hope those judges know that, man, because it was just it was not right.
Yeah, I mean, she poured her heart and soul into it. That is a trait that she gets directly from her father. For a 9-year-old that put all that effort in, it can be crushing. So, Echo, I know you're probably going to hear this. Don't let let me rephrase this. Don't let the numbskulls get you down. You keep doing you.
That's awesome, man.
That's the most important thing. If you find something that you're passionate about, you will never work a day in your life.
Oh, man, so true.
It's so true.
She's creating masks and stuff right now, man. This kid is so creative. She's so much better than I was and ever will be, but she is extremely creative, and she's working on masks in her room and stuff like that. She's amazing, man. She's very artistic. My big one turned 17.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Man.
So proud of her, man. She's hard worker, super clean, like just a perfect person. And I just can't believe she came from me, man. I'm like some scum. I just come from the slums, and I'm scum, and my family's trash, and I'm trash. And to have somebody who's so perfect, I can't believe that she came from me.
See, and this is something I get onto him all the time about. And actually, people have gotten onto me for the same thing. Humble to a fault. It's like down to earth, almost at a sub-earth level, self-deprecating. You got to stop that, man.
Yeah, it's true.
You're a badass.
Oh, no. I read a Bruce Lee quote. No, man. I read a Bruce Lee quote the other day, though, and it said, this really hit me because exactly what you're saying, and I am really awful with myself with internal dialogue, and I talk about that a lot, like being better about it. But the Bruce Lee quote was like, never talk bad about yourself, even if you're joking, because your body can't tell the difference,
right.
and you'll really believe it. And it's true, though. I don't know if it's good for me or bad for me, but sometimes it pushes me further, I think.
It seems to work for you, but this goes back to your point of people seeing you the way that they see you. And I've been made acutely aware of that by people around here because of the work that I've done over the last almost 47 years. So I get it. And so I am very mindful about the self-talk that I give. It's like the question gets asked, do you know who you are?
Yeah.
Remember who the hell you are. That's,
You listen to David Goggins ever?
Yeah, yeah.
There was a time where I was like, man, I want this dude to be president one day, man, because he's legit. Like, the dude he's hardcore, man.
Yep,
So he grew up, like, I guess, close to the KKK, and so he's bullied his whole life, and this dude became, like, an Army Ranger and, like, went through Hell Week and the Navy SEALs twice. Like, dude's crazy, right? Decorated military guy. But he says some of the most profound stuff, and he calls it reaching into the cookie jar so you can remember who you are.
Yeah.
I have to listen to that guy's voice every day. He gets me going, man.
There you go.
He'll be running and kind of talking to camera or whatever, but I've read his book and stuff. It's called Can't Hurt Me, and the guy is just amazing, man.
Man, so make sure you check that out. Speaking of amazing, one of the aspects of his career that he doesn't really talk about, but I'm going to in just a moment. More with Antonio Pantoja on Gunshots Straight from the Hip.
As a business owner, one of your biggest concerns is marketing your products and services. What message do I want to send? Who am I sending the message to? How do I reach the largest number of them possible? And how do I make it cost effective? The answer to all of these questions is Mark Gunn Media Inc. With over 4 decades of multimedia experience, from producing your commercial to giving you a winning strategy for marketing your business, Mark Gunn Media can help you get the best possible outcome. Just ask any of our past clients, and they'll tell you that Mark Gunn Media gets results. For more information, call 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. To download this and past episodes, go to markgunmedia.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Once again, your host, Mark Gunn.
Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip. Mark Gunn hanging out with my brother Antonio Pantoja, renowned filmmaker and photographer. And one of the aspects that you don't talk about a whole lot are the numerous awards that you've won. If you look at his website, right there on the splash page, you know how you see the award banners when you're looking at Oscar movies that are being contenders? There's like rows and rows and rows of stuff that you've won over the course of your career. Is that a big selling point for folks that want to hire you, or is that just something that you just kind of, okay, next?
Yeah, I think at one point, I think so. I used to like to compete a whole lot, and you lose a whole lot too, And it looks like when you win a lot, I think I won over 200 now. But if you win a lot, you don't learn a lot,
Yeah.
And I haven't competed in I think 6 years or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that you really learn from your losses, man.
Yeah.
And I've lost a lot, man, a whole lot. So, you can't be afraid to compete if you're afraid to lose too.
Right.
And I've lost a lot. So I've learned a lot, by losing, but you do win some, and that always feels really good, but it's only confirmation that you're doing the right thing.
Right.
When you get those losses, man, you really fine tune and it makes you a little bit better. It hurts. For sure. Just like, you could tell I'm bitter about that 48 hour.
Yeah. Honestly, I would be too. As a parent, I'd be rather bitter too.
Dude,
so.
out of all of them, that's the one I'm most. I've lost some, but that's the one I'm most, because I'm very confident in that. But yeah, man, I think that at one point it was a really good selling point and stuff like that. But I think that, like I said, man, the more I lose, I think the more I learn.
And but the thing is, you've got such this reputation for the quality of the work that you do and the unique nature of the work that you do. And it's like in conversations that I will have with people all over the city or whatever, the name Antonio Pantoja comes up and it's like, oh yeah, he's that dude.
Oh man, really?
He's that
awesome.
dude. So you are highly regarded in this area.
That's so kind of you.
Because there are a lot of people in the creative space, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to dabble in between worlds, hard media and the creative side of it. So I'm able to dabble in between. The name pops up on both sides. So we alluded to this earlier, the work that you're doing with the Voice Tribune now.
Yeah, they gave me my column on there. It was crazy. I think it was 2 months ago they approached me, and I was shooting for them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I shoot for tons of magazines, so I don't think much of it. And just whatever they want. They want me to shoot something, I'll shoot it. And so they said, yeah, I got a lot of covers. I've shot a lot of covers before. But this time they said, yeah, so you're going to be the cover. And I said,
yes,
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. Like, which photo did you guys choose from? Which set? And they were like, no, you. And I was like, I still didn't get it. I'm like, I still don't get it. So they told me about 7 times that I'm going to be on the cover in October. I just still didn't get it. I'm like, You mean like my person, myself?
Right.
I did a photo of myself for the cover. And then after that, they were like, there was pretty good reception for it. So they said, would you like to have a column? And you do anything you want. You write it and put anybody on a spotlight that you want. And obviously I'm starting to peck away and starting to put people I love in there, You see with Dorian and other people. But so I'm doing that and I'm writing things in there that I hope are impacting people. And the last one was about Pure Imagination song by Willy Wonka.
Yeah.
I just heard that one morning. It was just a really good morning. I felt like I got out of a depression.
Yeah.
And I got up in the morning. I said, man, I'm going to throw on some Willy Wonka soundtrack, man. And I was weird, man. And I was cooking breakfast and stuff. And that song came on and I listened to it, but I heard it different this time.
Oh.
And I heard the lyrics. And it basically, in a nutshell, what it means is all of this can be beautiful if we see it that way.
Right.
And we're not seeing it the right way because it is exactly what you make it. And dude, I started crying, man. I'm like, man, that was amazing. So I wrote about that, but it's also given me an opportunity to put on a lot of people who just don't get the visibility that they deserve. My friend May Rose, she's an amazing artist. She's an actress. She can dance. She's a choreographer. And now she's got a nail studio. So we did this crazy thing with nails that I seen nothing like it before.
Right.
But I wanted to draw some eyes onto her because she deserves it and she's amazing and she works so hard. So being able to have a platform to do that is beautiful, man. It's really crazy. So,
and I've always loved the staff at the Voice Tribune because years ago they gave me the opportunity to write a column. And I'm like, okay, why not? Absolutely loved it. And so I still try to keep my writing chops fresh for that opportunity ever presents itself again.
We got to get you back, bro.
I'm still writing, so.
I'm going to make that introduction.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I got some emails flying around between me and D and them right now, so I want to get you too, man.
Beautiful. I would be honored. So what are you working on now?
I've got a feature that's in the very early stages of pre-production right now. And then photo-wise, I'm always looking to just put people on, man, who I love. I'm super passionate about it, man. If I'm not shooting, I'm super empty and depressed if I'm not doing it. So it makes me whole. So I'm always shooting if I can. And those are just like little things, They're always big projects for me. I shoot a million photos and I'll use one. I'll edit one photo.
And that's generally speaking, that's the nature of any photo shoot. You'll take hundreds of photos and maybe if you're lucky, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of them actually make the cut because
so true.
And I've learned, and again, this is a Pantoja-ism that I've picked up. I've become hypercritical of the stuff that I shoot, but not to my detriment, not to where I'm down on my ability as a photographer, because that's always going to evolve. But could I have gotten more out of this composition? That type of thing.
Yeah.
And I try to put myself through the paces of shooting real life things that are happening in that moment. So I have less control over the environment and more control over how I actually see it. So those are the things that I look for as a photographer. And I tend to have the most fun shooting stuff like that. Concerts, that type of thing. Anything that's live action, that's in the moment.
Yeah.
I really enjoy shooting because it does test you.
Yeah,
and so
I agree.
Yeah, when it comes to editing and making whatever corrections or whatever, that's when you become hyper-focused. And it's like, you'll see a shot like, oh, I didn't see that grain. I could have used a different blah, blah. I've had to learn to not nitpick so much at that type of stuff.
Yeah, me too.
For the overall sake of the photo that I'm trying to get finished because, and I'm sure you've done this.
Yeah.
There's one section of a photograph where the color is just annoyingly off to where you're spending so much time in trying to color grade that you end up screwing up the entire photograph because you're so hyper-focused on that one element. I quit doing that.
Oh, yeah. That's a good thing to get out of. I change everything. So anytime I shoot any photo, people are like, dude, this is not at all what we shot. Sometimes I looked at the photo for 2 or 3 hours before I decide on what I'm going to do to it. But I think that what's weird is when you kind of get in there and you start shooting these things. I could show you some crazy before and afters, but you get in there and you start shooting and you start working with it and massaging this photo into something that's more you, and then you put it out into the world. It's very personal. Some of these stories that I'm telling in here is like extremely personal. There's one that I did with an old school CRT TV recently that there's things in that photo that no one will ever know about, but I know the story. And what's funny is somebody listened to like a Taylor Swift song. I've never really heard many, but I'm sure there's some about breakups in there.
Yeah.
and they might be like singing all the words to this song, and this is my story. This is my story.
Right.
And it's really not. Like, she maybe wrote this song about herself and her own thing. And then once you release it to the world, it no longer belongs to you anymore.
Right.
And it's not being judged by the public, but it becomes theirs. And that art belongs to them now. So that's their story now. It's not your story anymore once you release it to the world. So as personal as some of this stuff is, you give it out to them, and now it belongs to them.
And they always take a piece of you with it.
I totally agree with that, man. I totally agree. And you're attached to that as the artist for sure. Like that, those emotions that people will never forget. And even if it's just, I'm talking about these images like they're, they got to change the world, but maybe they could, maybe you do one that does. People do that stuff for the negative. People change the world for the negative sometime with these things. And do I think that people have the ability to change it for the positive through their stories? Absolutely.
And there you go. So if people want to learn more about Antonio Pantoja, how can they do that?
I would say avoid my website and go to markgunmedia.com. Check out his photography because it's really amazing. But you don't need to see mine.
There he goes. There he goes. But again, Instagram, Facebook, just look for the name Pantoja and you'll see exactly what it is I'm talking about. Brother, thank you so much for doing this.
It's an honor to be here, man.
No, this is an honor to have you, for real. So
thank you so much.
Once again, Antonio Pantoja, Gunshot Straight from the Hip. We will have another episode. Don't forget, you can download this one and past episodes simply by going to my website, markgunmedia.com. And until the next episode, remember my 5 random hugs of kindness. You want to hug 5 people a day, 4 that you know, 1 person that you don't know, because the power of a hug is an incredible thing. And as always, if you can't change the people around you, change the people around you. We'll see you next episode.
You've been listening to Gunshot Straight from the Hip, the show that explores the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. These are uplifting stories of people just like you who touch the lives of others just by being themselves. We're always looking for feedback and show ideas, so reach out to us by email, mark@markgunmedia.com. That's mark@markgunmedia.com. Make sure you check us out for the next episode. Thank you for listening.
Mark Gun Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.